Number 10, 1602 Spider-Man. In part 1 of this list, we mentioned Spider-Man 2099, so for part 2, we had to wind it back a little bit. Peter Parquois, fancy name, first appeared in Marvel 1602 issue 1, but it wasn't until a couple years later in New World issue 4 where he was introduced as the Spider. Peter Parquois didn't have any powers per se, but he still got the job done. For Fury. Sorry, Royal Spy Master Nicholas Fury, that is. Now, I love this version of Pete quite a bit because there's these odd looking spiders that you're expecting that are going to bite him, and then he's going to turn into the webhead, but it just doesn't happen. It gets so close, and then he's like, I'm a normal guy. It's great, it teases you, so fun. So this Spider-Man is, yes, of course, a little bit weaker than our 616 webhead, but I'll give him bonus points because of the ruffles. And also, no goggles either. This dude's eyes must be so dry. Number 9, Spider-Man Noir. Bumping the clocks ahead to the year 1933, the Great Depression doesn't seem like an appropriate time to do backflips and webbing people up, but the 2008 4-part miniseries finds one of the coolest versions of Peter Parker for sure. Nicolas Cage voiced this version of Spidey in Sony's Spider-Verse film, and I gotta say, they kind of nailed it. His origins are more or less the same. Norman Osborn is a shady mayor this time around, and the way Spider-Man fights crime is so extra, I gotta admit. When I read Noir, I always read Spider-Man's voice in the same voice as like Jackie Earle Haley's Rorschach. I don't know, it's so fitting and smoky, it's definitely a vibe, that's for sure. And before we continue on with this list, if you want to go ahead and give us a thumbs up, that would be extremely helpful for our channel. You're the best, thank you so much for your support. Let's get right back to this list, shall we? Number 8. Arachnite. Coming at you live from Warp World, one of the most out there versions of Peter Parker hit the page in Infinity Wars issue 3. Moon Knight and Spider-Man are gearing up. They're making a game plan to take down Gamora, and Spider-Man says, just punch whoever I punch in a second. Awesome, great deal. Now that turns out to be a lot harder than imagined when the both of them merge together. Alongside Arachnite, we got to meet Ghost Panther, Soldier Supreme, Iron Hammer, and more. Now Peter's mind was also separated into 4 different personalities like Moon Knight, each desiring dominance of his body. So there's Science Pete, the Knight, of course, the friendly neighborhood Arachnid, and for when it comes to signing those checks, CEO Peter. A combination of darts and webs ought to get the job done as well. Number 7, Spider Kid. Making his first appearance in Spider-Force issue 1, Earth 218 Peter's childhood is actually a little darker, believe it or not. Both of his parents passed away in a car crash tragically, and Uncle Ben was much more different after that. He was a mean old man. He was abusive to Peter, so much so that Peter actually scrapped the family name. He started going by Charlie Parker. Charlie was a troubled kid naturally. It wasn't his fault at all, but he had to spend 2 years at the Administration for Child Services and then 2 more years at Horizon Juvenile Detention Center. Now his powers didn't arrive until he was 13 after that, and then he had to bust dealers just to get by. Charlie was recruited into the Superior Spider Army by Ashley Barton, who would call Charlie Grandpa, because of the resemblance of her grandfather Pete from her reality. I love Grandpa Pete's style. The exposed arms, gotta admit, pretty badass. Number 6, spiders, man. And now on to something a little more, I don't know, disgusting, perhaps? Spider-Man of Earth 11580 is actually Spider's man. He's made of 1,000 spiders that work together. Hive mind status. So gross. See, before the incident, Peter and Gwen were visiting Horizon Labs, and instead of one spider coming down, taking a bite of Peter, he actually fell into a pit of radioactive spiders where they consumed him. But he didn't go. See, his consciousness was actually spread out within all of these thousands of spiders. So much worse, way worse, I would say. Even on the cover of Spider-Geddon issue 3, it grosses me out. You see all of them and they're great, all the different alternate Spider-Mans, and then you see him and his mask is ripped, there's spiders coming out. Like, no, I don't want your help. I want anybody's help but you. Go away. He's actually quite similar to Carl King, who came around in comics much earlier with Spider-Man's Tangled Web issue 1. Only he was a bully in Peter's class who was obsessed with getting the same powers as Spider-Man, so he ate the dead spider that initially bit Peter and then ended up in a similar conundrum. I'd rather eat the spider than be consumed by thousands of them. Everybody's turning into spiders like it's a fun thing. That's a hard pass. I'd rather just not have superpowers.
Number 5, Jean Grey Earth 7642. This alternate version of Jean comes to us from a Marvel and DC crossover universe assigned the number Earth 7642. In fact, after her initial appearance, Jean from this universe would also appear in stories pertaining to her past in a crossover with the Wildcats. Vets, who were over at Image at the time. So just all the crossovers really. In this reality, Jean does become the Dark Phoenix, wipes out a star, and then takes her own life, much like in the main continuity version of the story. But instead of that not being the real Jean and learning that she was actually alive but hidden underwater, in this universe, Jean is resurrected by Darkseid, who intends to use her in his pursuit of the anti-life equation. The Teen Titans and the X-Men team up to defeat Darkseid and Jean, who then recovers her memory of her life before she was Dark Phoenix and turns on Darkseid, once more sacrificing herself to save everyone else. Ain't that just the way? Number 4. Apocalypse. In Age of Apocalypse, in the reality of Earth 295, Jean ends up eventually taking on the mantle of Apocalypse. While she perished in this reality shortly after that happened, it's basically because she sacrificed herself in order to protect other people. As I said, that always happens. Jean Grey was so powerful as Apocalypse that she even managed to hold on to her own personality, but she could feel that influence of her new role working to change her, as she expressed that she did feel intensely arrogant, which might also be why she was cool going out the way that she did in the end. Cause you know, I feel like Jean wouldn't want to be fully taken over by that force. Number 3. God Level Phoenix. This version of Jean comes to us from one of the short stories featured in X-Men Millennial Visions 2000. In the story by the maker, we learn that Jean is one of the few to survive both Deathbird and Magneto's attack. Unable to stand against them as they are, the X-Men turn to a device Forge created to evolve them further, giving them basically godlike abilities, or raising their abilities to become godlike, perhaps I should say. Jean, as her power-up, gains full and complete control over the Phoenix, making her more powerful than ever before. Definitely not a hero you'd want to go up against, though I honestly wouldn't want to go up against Rogue either in this reality, who you just need to be within a mile of to have your powers and life energy drained, which sounds pretty scary, at least if she has any skin exposed. Number 2. Zorn. While she might not have gone dark or taken the powers of Apocalypse, Jean as Zorn from the alternate reality of Earth 13729 is just all around one of the most powerful Jeans in the multiverse, in my humble opinion. Her powers are like her main counterpart but improved, making her one of the strongest all-around alternates out there. Of course, even then, like most alternate versions of Jean, and even main Jean, Zorn still perished in the end. In X-Men Battle of the Atom issue number 2, we learn that Jean's powers are so great that not even she can apparently handle them, and during the all-out brawl with all the other X-Men and alternate X-Men, she overloads and ends up exploding, creating a massive explosion all around her and leaving nothing left of her own corpse except for her Zorn mask. Number 1. Phoenix/Dark Phoenix. I really wanted to make Zorn my number 1 most powerful alternate Jean, but then I remembered that technically both Phoenix and the Dark Phoenix personas we saw in the comics were not really Jean in the main continuity, which would make Phoenix an alternate as well, albeit a one who we thought at the time was the main Jean and who existed in the main continuity still, living in effect as Jean. Dark Phoenix was powerful enough to destroy a whole planet and the whole Dabari race, which I believe amounted to, I think, billions of lives lost. Later, after sacrificing herself to save everyone from her own darkness, it was revealed that Dark Phoenix wasn't really Jean, but in fact a Jean duplicate created by the Phoenix Force, which used Jean's body and mind as blueprints to create a more powerful version of her while she rested safely beneath Jamaica Bay. So Phoenix and Dark Phoenix both are Jean, but at the same time aren't, which would classify Phoenix as an alternate version technically, and definitely one of the most powerful alternates out there as such. In fact, the creation of that retcon is pretty cool, because apparently that retcon had to be created because they wanted to, if they were gonna bring Jean back, make her not guilty for any of the bad stuff she did as Dark Phoenix. So they basically had to make it so that that Jean wasn't the real Jean, which is pretty wild. Number 10. Gwenverine. Gwenverine is an alternate version we've really only seen briefly in Secret Wars Battle World issue number 3, but I like to imagine that she is pretty strong and also pretty cool, like many of her other amalgamated versions. Gwen is a character that we've seen become an alternate version of Spider-Man and Deadpool, and both of those characters and versions of Gwen Stacy are pretty rad, I must admit. So I imagine her Wolverine version would also be tough as nails and fierce. Gwenverine also appeared on an alternate cover for Old Man Logan issue number 2 from 2015, with art done by Chris Samnee. If that art is any indication, like her other alternate versions before her, this would probably prove to be a pretty powerful and popular alternate version of Wolverine and Gwen, if, you know, we saw more stuff from her. I just want to read a comic that's about all the awesome and powerful alternate Gwen versions running around in the multiverse together. Gwen Stacy's Adventure Through the Multiverse, it could be called, and Gwen could wander around and meet all the alternate, possibly mutant, versions of herself. Maybe they're all secretly mutants. That would be kind of cool. Just like how Deadpool or Gwenpool was secretly a mutant, maybe, or retconned herself to be a mutant. I love that, it's so weird. Number 9. Poison Wolverine. Poison Wolverine is the assimilated version of Wolverine from Earth 22186, who became bonded to a poison. Poisons are basically like symbiotes, except symbiotes are kind of their own thing over at Marvel, so I guess imagine a symbiote, but it's like a different symbiotic alien race. So not a symbiote, and kind of pointy and sharpy instead. Are you with me at all? The poison that bonded to Wolverine and took him over would have his powers and would also be able to use his biomass to shapeshift and give itself extra appendages or tentacles as needed. So this is a version of Wolverine who isn't in control as much, but does still have powers, plus can also shapeshift. Sadly, this version of the character did perish, not because it was defeated per se, but because the head of its hive, the Poison Queen, was vanquished. That's how it works for the poisons. Your queen is vanquished, you're dead. Number 8. Wolverham. Although he might not seem that powerful, Wolverham of Reality 73174 might actually end up being one of the most powerful. He is like an alternate version of both Spider-Ham, Peter Porker, and of Wolverine. Being that he's also kind of cartoony in origins, it's likely that his powers are similar to that of both heroes, meaning that he has probably a crazy healing factor, his adamantium claws and skeleton, and can pull off all sorts of immensely powerful cartoon antics, with cartoon physics applying to his fights and his adventures. I don't know about you, but I think having cartoon physics in play makes you pretty powerful. Cartoon physics are wacky. Number 7. Old Man Logan. Old Man Logan is still a badass who manages to get a lot done despite the fact that his healing factor sometimes struggles to keep up. In his old age, his healing factor is slowed down when we first get into Logan's future adventures in the post-apocalyptic wasteland that was once Earth. However, much more later down the line, his healing factor finally picks back up again. At this time, Logan no longer goes by the name Wolverine at all and is instead known as the Hooded Man. So this version of him is kind of weaker, but also kind of the same. Either way, Old Man Logan also brings years of experience and wisdom to the table, which I think should be worth something extra when it comes to how powerful he is. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more Wolverine lists or more mutant lists in general, haha, I love writing mutant lists for you, please be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up and clicking subscribe. Do all the things, woo! Number 6. Diamond Patch. Diamond Patch is the version of Wolverine from Warp World, which of course was made by Gamora when using the Infinity Stones to fold the universe in half. He is the amalgamation of Emma Frost and Wolverine, making him a pretty deadly and stylish character. His claws, instead of being adamantium, are diamond, and Diamond Patch also has a sharp eye and mind for good business ventures as well, like Emma Frost. He also seems to be able to channel his telepathic powers using his claws as well. It was also implied that in the future, Diamond Patch may potentially be destined to bond with the Phoenix Force. Ho-ho!
Number 5. Justice Lord. Coming from the animated universe, the 2003 Justice League episode titled A Better World showed us one that's rather darker. This parallel universe showed Kal-El and the Justice Lord storming the White House. President Lex Luthor had just executed the Flash, and the team wasn't too happy about it. So Batman and Wonder Woman fought off the Secret Service while Superman tells Luthor that he's taking him in. Now Lex is obviously insane, so he has a button that can just start a nuclear war if pressed. One of those easy buttons, just, you know, a nightmare. Now he's threatening Superman, saying that he needs to use deadly force if he wants to save the people, so Superman does. His eyes glow red, and when Batman and Wonder Woman come back in, it's too late. They can smell his corpse. It's really gross. Superman though, he was all smiles. This was just the start. Now it cuts to a couple years after this point and the Justice Lords were ruling the Earth. And of course freedom was not included. Number 4. Composite Superman. Joseph Meach made his first appearance in World's Finest issue 142. He was a diver struggling to get by, so he put on this sidewalk diving show. You know, those sidewalk diving shows we always come across. He jumped from a high building into this water tank, but the water, unbeknownst to him, was actually leaking out. So when he went to jump, he almost landed in a practically empty tank, but Superman thankfully saved his life. Now on top of that, Superman even gave this guy a job. He employed him as a custodian at the Superman Museum. So Joseph was pretty bitter after this point. He had his own misfortunes, plus he's now shining Superman's cape all day. I get it, but when a lightning bolt hit the statue of the Legion of Superheroes, Joseph got all of their power somehow. So he used this new shape-shifting power look to look both like Batman and Superman, going by the Composite Superman. So Meech would plan these situations for Batman and Superman to show up and save the day, but they were rigged to make these heroes look stupid. His powers were impressive, but not permanent. He reverted back to human form one day with no recollection of what he had done. Number 3. Cyborg Superman. Hank Henshaw made his first appearance in Adventures of Superman issue 465. He was a scientist, astronaut, and team leader of the Excalibur crew. He was joined on this LexCorp space mission by his wife and 2 others. A lot of Fantastic Four vibes going on here, that's for sure. In fact, after the cosmic rays got to the crew, the powers were actually quite similar. Terry, Hank's wife, was essentially the Invisible Woman, whereas Hank, his face started to melt off. It actually ended horribly for everybody but Terry. Now Superman saved her, the others it was too late, but in Adventures of Superman issue 468 it was revealed that Hank lived through iCloud. Yeah, basically he transferred all of his consciousness to LexCorp's mainframe, and then he took over NASA's equipment, and then he beamed his mind into the birthing matrix, the pod that carried Superman from Krypton. So now he was able to travel the cosmos and learn about other local life forms and their history. And he eventually came to the conclusion that Superman was evil and needed to be stopped. So he recruited Mongol and planned his revenge, but after Superman died battling Doomsday, Hank claimed to be the Superman reborn. Not a bad plan. So far he's killing it. Number 2. Super Doom. Coming from Earth 45, this Superman was also a project gone wrong. He first appeared in Action Comics Volume 2, Issue 9 when Jimmy Olsen created a machine that could turn thoughts into reality. So the gang decided to make a robot Superman. What could go wrong, I wonder? They ended up selling this device to Overcorp, which made it into a Superman the Last Night of Tomorrow, aka the monstrous Super Doom. Now Overcorp used him to take over the planet, obviously, but that still wasn't enough. Super Doom entered the bleed space and searched the multiverse for his creators, destroying planets and other versions of Superman, like Optiman of Earth 36 and Superman of Earth 42, but eventually it came to Earth 23 and had to go against their Superman, Calvin Harris, aka the Superman President. And if you want to know more about the President Superman, check out part 1 of this list after you're done, if you haven't done so already. And finally, number 1. Darkseid Superman. In Superman Darkseid issue 1 released back in the late 90s, we see an alternate life for Kal-El when Metron intercepts his escape pod and gives the Kryptonian to Darkseid instead. There you go, enjoy. Now it doesn't take long for Superman to then become the champion of Apocalypse. His name was instantly heard across the planet. This guy wore dark armor, he was way more brutal when it came to combat, and when he led the battle against New Genesis, he destroyed the home of the New Gods. And as the planet died, the High Father told him the truth about his origins and his true prophecy, so he was then sent to Earth, where he almost drowned because he was wearing all that badass armor, but luckily he was saved by a woman named Lane. Brutal origin story, but we got where we needed to be eventually.
Number 10. The Batman from Red Sun. While we will be focusing on Batman here from Earth 30, the reality of Superman Red Sun, it should be noted that there are more, and that really the symbol of Batman is what is so powerful here. However, it all started with one man who we aren't even given the true name of. We simply know him as Batman. It was his mission to take down the man responsible for his parents' murder, Pyotr Roslov. In his attempt to get to Roslov, however, he ended up being pitted against the Soviet hero Superman, aka the Red Sun. Batman almost succeeded in defeating Superman here, but Wonder Woman unexpectedly became free of her bonds, turning the tides of the fight in Superman's favor. In the end, Batman decided to take his own life rather than be captured, blowing himself up but confessing to Superman beforehand the truth about the corrupt Roslov, and in so doing achieved his mission. While the original Batman died, others would later take his place in the fight for justice, inspired by the stories of his heroism. Number 9. Owlman. Owlman isn't a direct alternate version of Bruce Wayne, as he's the older brother of Bruce on Earth 3, Thomas Wayne Jr., the elder son of Martha and Thomas Wayne. However, he is the equal counterpart to main continuity Bruce, considering his place on the crime syndicate as their Batman, and so for that, we're going to include him here. When Thomas was younger, he orchestrated the death of his own parents as he believed they were squandering and mismanaging his inheritance, the family wealth. He even tried to get his younger brother Bruce, whom he loved dearly, to join him, but Bruce actually ended up getting cold feet, and Thomas as such was forced to kill him. As Owlman, Thomas is much more dangerous, as he does not have the same moral code as main continuity Batman, but is at the same level when it comes to his intellect, training, and skills. And his plans, he's pretty good at plans too. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more powerful alternate versions of Batman, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. 2 bat thumbs up. Do bats have thumbs? I don't think so. They have like little fingers on their wings. I think that's what they have. Little claws. Number 8. Richard Grayson. Dick Grayson is another alternate version of Batman who took up the cape and cowl following Batman's supposed death. Being that he's been trained and pretty much prepared to take up the mantle his whole life, being Batman's first Robin, Nightwing makes for a pretty powerful alternate Batman. Controversial opinion perhaps, but despite his following in Batman's footsteps in terms of his moral code, I would say he is still a more powerful alternate than Owlman. I know some people might say like not having morals makes you more powerful, but I digress. At one point actually he and Owlman teamed up and almost enacted a plot to take down the crime syndicate together. Dick comes with years of training and is known for his genius intellect, forensic skills, is a master martial artist, and would go on to become a very capable spy and develop espionage skills later on when he infiltrates Spiral. During his time as Batman, following the events and apparent death of Batman in Final Crisis, Grayson would fight alongside Damian Wayne, who acted as his sidekick Robin. Number 7. Father Bruce. You might refer to him as Bat Priest based on this art, but his real name is Father Bruce, and he is the head priest of the House of Milk and Honey, a new version of the Gather House. Father Bruce makes an appearance in Milk Wars, the Young Animals imprint crossover with the DC main world and characters. He is prominently featured in part 2 of the crossover in the Mother Panic and Batman special. The thing is, Father Bruce isn't really an alternate, but he's so cool and this story is just so bizarre and great that I thought we needed to mention him here. I actually checked this out and then I was like, man, I gotta read Mother Panic, because I believe the writer of Mother Panic is the one that writes this comic. I'm sorry, I don't remember their name off the top of my head, but you should check it out. Father Bruce is a version of Batman who has been twisted into a priest. Here Father Bruce is in charge of a small army of Robins known as the Holy Sidekick Choir of Merciful Justice, who he teaches using his book of Bat Manners and divine wisdom. They drink the milk created by Mother Partake, who does so in an eerie manner. She kinda creates it with her fingers, it's really weird, and have their histories rewritten by a golden machine. Bruce himself is trapped here until Mother Panic, aka Violet Page, manages to free him and he returns to his old self. But even in this alternate persona, he's pretty mighty. Also in this delusional, brainwash created reality, Bruce believes it is a priest crashing through his window, not a bat, that inspired him to take up the mantle of Father Bruce and become a priest. I just love that. I just love that he's like crashes through the window and he's like, who are you? And then he's like, I will become a priest, as he like drinks the milk. Oh, it's such a weird story, I like it. Number 6. ManBat Batman. Now I know Taylor on his part 1 had Batman, aka Earth 43 turned vampire bats, but I figured why not bring you another vampiric version of the hero, because I also just really love vampires and they're powerful. This alternate version of Batman is not actually a Bruce Wayne alternate, but instead is an alternate version of Kirk Langstrom, who we know in the main continuity as ManBat. Kirk Langstrom here was working on a cure for cancer, specifically lymphoma, which he himself suffered from. He did end up creating a serum that cured him, yay, but regrettably, due to its ties to bats, it also turned him into a pseudo-vampire. As a vampire created by science, Langstrom became a part of the new superhero Holy Trinity in The Gods and Monsters. He possessed superhuman strength, durability, agility, and could fly, and also held onto his genius intellect. The one downside of his vampirism was that he did require blood in order to live. Comparable but somewhat different to Marvel's Morbius, who is also known as a pseudo-vampire. Number 5. Wolverina. Wolverina is the female version of Wolverine and cousin of Wolvie or Wolverine from the alternate Earth of 89923. She works as a waitress at her father's bar, Bud Sud, but is also a skilled fighter who was called in to replace Wolverine after he went missing. Wolverina also has leadership skills and could potentially make a good team leader if needed. More than that, while her powers are somewhat unspecified when it comes to what they are or how powerful they can be considered, Wolverina also is a self-aware comic book character, meaning that she knows she is in a comic book and can often use this knowledge to take charge of her own narrative and break the fourth wall with, reaching out to her readers. I think having that kind of power can be pretty potent in comics, which is why she makes the cut for our most powerful part 2 list. And she didn't do too bad, she's about halfway up, so Pretty impressive. Number 4. Weapon X. Weapon X comes to us from the Age of Apocalypse universe of Earth 295. Weapon X has powers similar to his Earth 616 counterpart, but his feral rages are more intense in comparison, and he initially requires Jean's assistance to calm those rages down, which was what brought the two together romantically. It would be in a fight with Cyclops when he made his way to try and save Jean Grey from Sinister that he'd lose his hand, while also taking one of Cyclops' eyes in exchange during the battle. A hand for an eye for a hand. That seems pretty fair, I guess. Weapon X would later go on, despite being maimed, to become even more powerful, possibly one of the most powerful alternate versions of the character, when he surprised everyone and ended up becoming Apocalypse's heir after his defeat and the return of the Celestials. During this time, he was known as Weapon Omega, though his newfound power would only end up being temporary. Eventually, he would have this power stripped from him by Jean and return once more to being Weapon X. Also, I think I cut off this hand, but I think it's actually this hand I think that he loses. I'm trying to remember the art. I always want to mirror everything, so that's why. I don't even know if it'll be the same for you though, because this might be mirrored for you. I don't know. How do you see it? Aren't cameras weird in the way that we see images? Isn't that all weird when you think about it? Anyways, the fact that we see images and we flip them with our eyes, and it's all freaky. Number 3. Earth 10005. This is the Wolverine that belongs to Fox's Mutantverse, played by Hugh Jackman. In this reality, Wolverine was one of the strongest mutants around, being the only one that Kitty was able to send back in time in Days of Future Past, and the only one who was able to put a stop to Dark Phoenix when it had taken over Jean Grey, corrupting her in X-Men Last Stand. Due to his healing factor, Logan was able to walk right up to Jean while everyone else was pretty much getting turned to dust around him. He pressed forward, struggling to reach her, and then used the awesome power of his love for her to calm Dark Phoenix down enough for him to be able to kill her with his claws, bringing Jean back but also killing both her and the Phoenix. Really sad. That's some pretty powerful healing factor and some pretty powerful love factor as well. Number 2. Governor General Howlet. The version of Wolverine from Earth 12025 is James Howlet, and he's not just a hero but also holds the position of Governor General to the Queen of England for Canada. For those who might not be aware, the Governor General position in Canada acts as basically the go-between for Canada and the Queen or the Crown. They act on behalf of the Crown, and a few other nations actually also have this position. Typically nations who were granted independence from the British, as opposed to having fought against the British to free themselves from British rule, have this position. James Howlet of Earth 12025 not only was known as Governor General, but he's also known for having an adamantine laced skeleton, which is actually different from adamantium, so if you thought I was saying that wrong, I'm not, it's a different thing. This, instead, is a mythical type of metal belonging to the gods. This grants James an extra layer of protection on both a mystical and godlike level, which means it's very hard to mess with James in any way. James also travels and adventures when he can with his romantic partner Hercules, which means if you mess with him, you likely also have to fight Hercules as well. Both this number and number 3 actually both have the power of love. The power of love. Number 1. Weapon Hex. Weapon Hex comes to us from Warp World, which was created by Gamora when she folded the universe in half. Doing so caused all the souls of that universe, of course, to merge together, as we talked about with Diamond Patch, creating combined beings such as Weapon Hex, who is a combination of both Laura Kinney's X-23, aka Wolverine, and Scarlet Witch. She, as such, has the combined powers of both of these heroes, making her pretty OP, possibly even more OP than Amalgam's Darkclaw, though she doesn't have quite as much plot armor most likely. Then again, with those two power sets, she wouldn't really need plot armor.
Number 10. Lex L. We'll kick off part 2 with an Elseworld story. This comes from Superman issue 230. Appropriately taking place on Earth 230 as well, we see Lex Luthor as the Man of Steel. Lex L was born on Krypton in this reality, only his father was an absolute nightmare to live with. He was insane, so they both left their doomed homeworld and they both landed on Earth. Now when they crashed on Earth, they just happened to cause the deaths of these two bank robbers, Jonathan and Martha Kent. So Lana's adopted brother was actually Clark Kent, so the two ended up hating each other down the road. You know, we love opposites, a nice fun play on opposites, but I feel bad for Lex L because he's bald. He has to wear a wig in his normal life. Whereas Clark Kent in normal continuity just has to put on glasses and then he blends in. This dude has to wear, he must go through so many wigs. Those things are not cheap, no way. Number 9, Bizarro Superman. First appearing in Superboy issue 68. Bizarro was created, as you would guess, from a duplicating Ray, hence the similarities, but only he's a Frankenstein clone. He has the opposite intentions. He can breathe fire and shoot ice out of his eyes, so it's a fun opposite. The new 52 version of Bizarro was created when Lex Luthor tried to clone Superman, and instead of waiting 10 years for the project to be complete, Lex released him only after 5, so in turn he had this pale, still shredded though, but slow version of Superman. Now the second Bizarro clone, making its first appearance with DCU Rebirth issue 1, ended up teaming up with Red Hood and Artemis, but the OG version is still my favorite. Even the way he spoke, everything would be the opposite of what he wants. It was so fun. So in the words of Bizarro, don't give this video a thumbs up and certainly do not subscribe if you haven't already. Number 8, Harvey Dent. Taking a dive into Tangent Comics, this Earth 9 Supes is a telepathic and telekinetic guy who uses a golden staff. I'm already a fan. Harvey's story began after he fell off the tallest building on Earth. When he stood up with only a few scratches, it was clear that his new abilities finally arrived. Dubbed the Superman, Harvey was capable of anything he put his mind to. The reason he got those abilities goes way back to the 70s when Nightwing was trying to create more superhumans. They used this experimental accelerant called the Miraclo solution, which is a catchy name, gotta admit, and then he dosed an entire town in South Carolina. Harvey was the only survivor, and after teaming up with the Flash and Atom, down the road Harvey decided to remake the Miraclo solution and give it to his fiancée Lola. Rumor has it she didn't survive, but she did, and she also received powers. Number 7, Karkin the Mighty. Instead of landing in America, what if Kal-El landed in the darkest jungles of Africa? Coming from Superboy issue 183, Karkin was raised by gorillas. Tarzan with laser vision. What a treat. Now he realizes he's different from the others after he learns how to fly. I guess the whole being a human thing didn't tip him off, but that's great. But this guy rocks. He's not smashing through buildings, fighting General Zod. No, this time he's saving hundreds of animals from floods. Guy grabs an elephant by its ears and just flies away. What a champ. I'm also a fan of Karkin's super suit. The one strap though looks a bit annoying. I wouldn't know which side to put it on. I'd never be too sure. He could totally wear this super suit upside down if he wanted to. Just saying. Number 6, Subject 1. Coming from the Flashpoint universe, Subject 1 had a different landing spot instead of Smallville. Kal-El crashed down here in Metropolis, of course killing random civilians because, the ship landing in the middle of the city. So the government takes custody of him, and that's when Project Superman begins. He was used as a weapon. Subject 0, of course, also exists, starts secretly training the boy, and then Subject 2, Crypto, sacrifices its life attacking the Luthors. It's pretty dark, all these test subjects locked away in a lab their whole life. But in Flashpoint Volume 2, Issue 2, Batman, the Flash, and Cyborg come to break the Subject 1 out. And on his way out, the power source containing Subject 0 in the Phantom Zone was destroyed, so he was now free. We love a happy ending. In a timeline that's been ripped apart, that is. Number 5, Astro Spider. Jumping on over to Earth 3145, making his first appearance in Spider-Force issue 1, John Jameson was the son of Jonah Jameson. He was an astronaut for NASA, and during one trip, a spider got trapped in his suit, which already sounds like a nightmare scenario. But when the space shuttle was then hit by cosmic waves, John obtained these amazing new abilities that all merged together. Now, he didn't come home and stop bank robbers one quip at a time. See, his Earth was actually destroyed by a thermonuclear war, so Jameson was assigned to oversee the construction of a spacecraft on the Nautilus platform. He, along with 35 others, are the last of humanity. So it's a little bit different than our, usual Earth 616 scenario. John can also read minds and create webs of solid telekinetic energy. He met his fate a few issues later when he was feasted on by Verna. Sometimes being a spider totem sucks. Number 4, the Savage Spider-Man. Less space and more savage land. This Peter Parker entered comics in Vault of Spiders issue 1. When a plane went down over Antarctica, Peter was the only survivor in his family. Now, he didn't have powers just yet, but he survived using the only remaining parachute. Tragic stuff. Now, during his rough emergency landing, the wind led him to touch down in a nest of giant spiders. and then they all just bit him non-stop until he himself gained these spider abilities, and then soon he was the new protector of Savage Land. Now later on he was recruited into the Spider Army by Ghost Spider to fight off the Inheritors back on our Earth 616. Number 3. Hostess kicks Spider-Man. I think it's time we talk about one of the craziest versions of the webhead, and perhaps one of the yummiest, I'll say. Besides Spider's Man, it's pretty yummy too. So not only is Peter dishing out quips and flips, but he's also feeding the world. This version appeared for the first time in an ad for Hostess Twinkies, so naturally its own Marvel universe had to exist to house such a reality. And also it's fun to talk about. So when it came down to taking on these supervillains, Spider-Man wouldn't resort to violence to get the message across. Instead, he would just huck Twinkies. He would huck fruit pies, chocolate cakes, all the treats, just coming at ya. It's so yummy. And funny enough, in Spider-Verse issue 1, the cakes are referred to as golden sponge cakes, you know, to avoid trademark issues, then they get sued. That's also the same issue where we see the end of said golden sponge cake Spidey. Short but sweet. Number 2, Superior Spider-Man. Starting in 2013, this version is the outcome of the Dying Wish storyline, where Dr. Octavius planted his mind inside Peter Parker's. That's right, the two ended up switching bodies like it's Freaky Friday, only with super abilities, but it's always fun. Otto Octavius was dying, and when Peter visited, he had no idea it's actually his own deathbed that he was looking at. Let me explain. So right when Otto Octavius switched into Peter's body, he discovered what it was really like to be a hero. He understood the whole with great power comes great responsibility thing. Having retained Peter's memories as well in this new skin suit, he decides to just go for it and fight crime, but he does it in a horrible way. He's not really sure how to balance the scales of justice just yet. He was violent when it came to handling these guys. Otto even enlarged the suit's talons to cause greater pain to his victims. Like, is he Jigsaw? Who does this? He modified the nano spider tracers as well that get ejected from said talons to paralyze the victims. Green Goblin and his army attacked, and then it was then that Otto Octavius realized he wasn't meant to be the sticky hero that he wanted to be. After coming to terms with the fact that Peter's consciousness still exists inside of him, he decided to sacrifice himself, allowing Peter to become the superior Spider-Man. Number 1, SpiderBoy. Another fun amalgam making his first debut in Marvel vs. DC issue 3, residing on Earth 9602, Spider-Man mixed with DC's Superboy. I mean, I smell power. Need I say more, really? SpiderBoy is a clone. Now he's a clone of Peter who was created during an accidental lab explosion. Now General Ross felt responsible, so he adopted the young clone, Pete Ross and Uncle Jen. They were a fun pair until Thaddeus was taken out by a mugger. Sad stuff. So Pete now became the hero. He put together a suit, became famous almost overnight. Now back when he returned to Project Cadmus, Pete was given a web pistol to help him swing around. And on top of that, he can increase his own personal gravity to help get things done. He can focus gravity inwards to make himself stronger and move faster, or he could lower gravity around himself in order to jump higher and further. OP, I would say you're pretty OP at that point. Number 9, Kidpool. Similar name, but much different. Kidpool comes from Earth 10330. Now he made his first appearance in Prelude to Deadpool Core issue 2, and he started his days out as a student of the Xavier Orphanage for Troubled Boys. Now due to his abrasive personality, he of course didn't fit in with the other super kids, so he was lonely most of the time. Now one day he was sent to detention with Scott Summers, and Wade convinced Scott that they should both break out and go to prom instead. I agree, I mean detention during prom, come on, that's just cruel. But in order to convince Scotty Boy to be a rebel, Wade promised him he'd help Scott get with Jean Grey. That ought to do the trick. While at prom, Kidpool caused trouble and even fought Logan. It was a hot mess. Mistress Storm stopped the fight, and Kidpool was on his way out when Deadpool arrived and also recruited this Kidpool. And before we continue with this list, if you want to go ahead and give us a thumbs up, that would be great. It helps our channel out quite a bit. You guys are the best. Thanks for your support. Now let's get right back to this video. Number 8, Dreadpool. In the reality of Earth 12101, the X-Men brought Wade to Dr. Ben Brighton, aka Psycho Man, in an attempt to cure Wade. Now they wanted him to shut down all these voices in Wade's head, but he didn't do that. He actually did the opposite. Wade was now encouraged to kill everybody in the Marvel Universe. And he started out by going after the Fantastic Four. Reed and the Thing were toast in just a couple of pages. Sue Storm held Dreadpool off by making his head explode, but once he healed, she was next to go. Dreadpool stole a device from Reed Richards that he used to take down the Watcher. So right off the bat, things get ugly. Number 7, Evil Deadpool. Keeping those sinister vibes going, Evil Deadpool is from our 616 main universe. He actually came to life during the pages of Deadpool Volume 4, issue 44. Now it actually all started with Ella Whitby. She was a psychiatrist who was obsessed obsessed with Wade Wilson. She was so obsessed that she would keep body parts that he lost over time. She would collect parts of him and then keep them in her freezer, you know, right next to the ice packs, of course. So when Deadpool found out about this creepy old cold collection, he threw them all in the dumpster. He just got rid of them. But that was a mistake, because once those body parts thawed out, they fused together to make another evil Deadpool. Just the smell of that freezer alone, I would have tapped out by day 3. Number 6, Wolverinepool. This next one is a total badass, one of my favorites if you ask me. Brief, but definitely memorable. First appearing in Cable in Deadpool issue 46, we see Wade Wilson after he's undergone the Weapon X program. He has his skeleton bonded with adamantium, and then he's recruited by Dreadpool to take on the evil Deadpool core members. So he joined the battle and killed Deadpool Pulp, but during the fight, main Wade tossed a grenade full of bugs at Wolverinepool. So the grenade went off and the bugs chewed at Wade's skin, just chewed him apart until nothing was left over except the adamantium skeleton and claws. Definitely the grossest way to go out, that's for sure. Number 5, Death Mask. While I mentioned a botched surgery earlier with Wade, this next one went exactly as planned. On Earth 11683, Reed Richards was able to remove a lethal brain tumor from Wade's head, so now he was better off than ever. No evil voices, and now he was actually a genius. But did he change the world one revolutionary invention at a time? Nope, he was a master criminal. But still, he's smart, I don't know. He built an empire. Wade went by the name Death Mask and killed that world's Victor Von Doom, and his outfit was actually a red version of Doom's. It was pretty sweet, I'm not gonna lie. Even after Death Mask was beaten by our main Deadpool, it didn't end there. Death Mask made a deal with Mephisto in order to release monsters on Earth, one of those monsters being Infernal Hulk. Ouch. Number 4, Dogpool. Wade Wilson of Earth 103173, aka Dogpool, made his first appearance in Prelude to Deadpool Core issue 3. Now Wilson was a dog being used as a test subject for Mascara X, this hot new product that could replenish itself after just one use. How beautiful and lovely and convenient, might I add. Now this version obviously is inspired from real life animal testing and abuse that happens, so it's pretty sweet when Wilson gets superpowers. Now they thought the dog didn't make it after a test, his body turned all corpse-like, so they got rid of it. But those regenerative abilities brought this pet back to life. A circus truck just ended up going by and seeing this immortal dog, and then Deadpool became the starring act of their show. Come and see the death-defying hound, what a headline. He was working there until Deadpool came and also recruited him for the Deadpool Core. Number 3, Deadman Wade. Coming from the Age of Apocalypse storyline on Earth 295, Deadman Wade was initially part of Apocalypse's Pale Riders. Danny Moonstar would just torture him non-stop. That was his whole thing. But that's gotta be a bit distracting, right? While the Riders were seeking out Avalon, Damask was so annoyed by the torture and the sounds that she strangled Moonstar to death. She just couldn't take it anymore. It's like when my sister would sing Taylor Swift, I'm like, a 4-hour drive, come on. So Deadman Wade wasn't too happy at this point, but when they finally arrived to Avalon, Wade's attack on innocent people was so much that Nightcrawler deemed it necessary to end his life. And he did so by teleporting away whilst grabbing his head. If you want to see Deadman Wade in more agony, begin so with Excalibur issue 1. Number 2, Ultimate Deadpool. Wade E. Wilson from the Ultimate Comic Run, Earth 1610 that is, made his first appearance at Ultimate Spider-Man issue 91. Now we had a pretty rough time when it comes to the Ultimates. The Ultimates are a different story, different origins, but Wade's is still bad. See, in Ultimate Spider-Man, Wade E. Wilson gets recruited to hunt down mutants on live television, which sounds like a pretty cool gig, but the government figured this is what the people want, and honestly, they're not too far off. People love tuning in. This is like the hot show. It's the talk of the town. And his appearance is even more shocking once Spider-Man unmasks him, and the fact that he does so on live television causes Wade to go nuts. And it was even worse than that because Spider-Man made him feel horrible for how he looked. He said his face smelled like a KFC dumpster on a hot day. What a roast. Oh my god, Spider-Man, relax. And also in Ultimate Spider-Man issue 92, Spider-Man is about to be unmasked himself, but Deadpool prevents it from happening. He says to respect the mask. How ironic. Number 1, Lady Deadpool. We just met Lady Loki and she kind of stole the entire show on Disney+, so we gotta end this list with Lady Deadpool. Wanda Wilson from Earth 3010 made her first appearance in Deadpool Merc the Mouth issue 7. Now this version of Deadpool cared, dare I say. She wanted to at least feel like she belonged and was part of a bigger, more important movement. So she led an assault force against the crooked General America, which was an evil Captain America in that world, and then she eventually found her place leading the Deadpool Corps, that team I've been mentioning throughout this entire list. In fact, Lady Deadpool was the one to tip off our main 616 Wade on the whole operation. Wade actually tossed Headpool at General America, but then he bit his arm off. Headpool was from the zombie universe, so Wade had to take the General's infected arm with him after he left Wanda's Earth. All the blood, all the arms, all the Deadpools. All the fun.
Number 5. Injustice Batman. Batman in Injustice not only has the moral high ground against Superman, who becomes a villain in this reality after the death of Lois Lane and their unborn child at his own hands due to the machinations of Joker and Harley Quinn, but Batman here also possesses the Super Pill, or more specifically, the 5U93R pill, which kinda spells super if you look at it. This pill, when ingested, allows Batman or his ally, father figure, and loyal butler Alfred to go toe-to-toe with Superman, meeting him on his level when it comes to strength and durability. Number 4. The Merciless. The Merciless is like the Wonder Woman version of the Dark Knights, as each of the core members is kinda meant to be a stand-in for a member of the Justice League. He initially teamed up with Diana Prince, aka Wonder Woman, to take down Ares on his world of Negative Earth 12 in the Dark Multiverse, but after doing so was forced to take Ares' helmet before Wonder Woman could and use it to defeat her. He basically knew that Diana would not allow him to use it otherwise, and so he was like, nah, I kinda gotta take it, otherwise it won't get used. He took up her symbol in her honor and wields the power of Ares, but multiplied. He is amazingly strong and durable, can summon any weapon, influence others to anger or fighting, and is pretty much god level, so yeah. Number 3. Super Batman. Super Batman was the name given to the Batman of Earth 1 when he traveled to Zur-En-Arrh. In the main continuity, Zur-En-Arrh was the name of Batman's alternate persona created when he witnessed the traumatic event of his parents being murdered that resides deep within his psyche. However, initially Zur-En-Arrh was the name given to a faraway planet in the golden age of Batman comics. It first appeared in issue 113 of Batman in the story Batman the Superman of Planet X. Here, Batman of Earth 1 is teleported a great distance to Zur-En-Arrh to aid Batman, the scientist Tlano, who watched Batman from afar through a telescope and was inspired to become the Batman of his own world, so he's also Batman. However, the intergalactic threat that Tlano Batman faces here is too great, and he needs Earth 1 Batman's help. On this planet, Earth 1 Batman's unique Earth-based human physiology makes him super strong, durable, and able to fly. Basically, he becomes Superman in terms of what he's capable of, which also at this time period I feel like would be pretty off the charts. Batman uses his powers to help Tlano and then is returned home afterwards and given one of Tlano's devices to keep as a memento. It doesn't work though, so it's basically just a little bit of junk that he can keep in his trophy case. Yay! Number 2. Darkfather. Darkfather was ultimately beaten by the superhero Holy Trinity, but only while they all kind of had a power upgrade all their own. He hails from the Dark Multiverse and is an alternate version of Bruce Wayne, who defeated Darkseid and took all his power and knowledge for himself afterward. Batman as Darkfather as such is a new god and also wields the anti-life equation, which he uses to influence others and to imprison them, forcing them to obey him and his will. He also has all the brilliance of main continuity Bruce and more. Number 1. Batman Who Laughs. Also known as the Darkest Knight, the Batman Who Laughs is an alternate version that is a combination of Batman and Joker. He comes from the dark multiverse reality of Negative Earth 22, where he as Batman ended up killing the Joker by snapping his neck after being pushed to the brink by the villain, who was dying anyways, admittedly. When he did so, however, he became infected by Joker venom that was released by this very final action. After becoming infected, Bruce went insane and had most of his Bat family killed, except for his biological son, Damian Wayne, who joined his side. Batman Who Laughs would go on to become super powerful after acquiring the powers of Dr. Manhattan when he had his brain transplanted into the body of the Dr. Manhattan Batman alternate. The Darkest Knight, even before this power upgrade, was already pretty powerful because 1. He was super popular, which always gives characters power, and 2. He was a mentally ill genius, which made him extremely deadly and dangerous to take on and kinda unpredictable. He also often fought against the superheroes he came up against with dark metal, in some cases managing to infect them and in so doing recruit them to his own dark army. Plus he's got all those dark nights, so that's just another thing. Number 10. Arana. Arana is definitely one of the most random alternates for Wonder Woman. She was an Amazon who only made a few appearances in the comics in the Earth 1 continuity and would take the Wonder Woman mantle from Diana after beating her in a contest of champions. Arana was very skilled and did beat Diana, which is why I thought it was relevant to include her here. Though it should also be noted that she mainly won, especially the last contest, because Diana's concern for the safety of others slowed her down. While Hippolyta initially proclaimed her daughter the victor of the contest due to her heroism, the gods disagreed and made Arana the winner instead. Diana chose to accept their will and handed over the position and title to Arana. Arana, however, would prove to be out of her league when she ventured into man's world, mainly failing as Wonder Woman due to her stubbornness and a string of misunderstandings. She was still pretty strong though. And of course, she was still the rightful victor of the contest, and for that, I thought she might be a cool alternative to highlight. Arana's story as Wonder Woman takes place over the course of 2 issues from Wonder Woman 250 to issue 251. Arana would also inspire a follow-up red-headed Wonder Woman character who would appear later on in the comics. Not inspire her as a person, but just inspire that character to exist. Number 9. Earth 2 Wonder Woman. Earth 2 Wonder Woman was the first version of the character we were introduced to in the comics, with her making her very first appearance back in 1942 in All-Star Comics issue number 8. This version of Diana would have tons of gadgets, including her earrings, which granted her whatever amount of oxygen she needed to survive, no matter where she was, gave her enhanced hearing, allowed her to survive without needing to consume food, and she could use them as a communication device, communicating at one point with the leader of Venus. That is a very versatile accessory. Although she was very strong and had various gadgets at her disposal to enhance her abilities, Diana did still possess the weakness that if she was bound by any man, she would lose all of her power. However, being bound by a woman, at least, doesn't have that effect, and as soon as Wonder Woman can get free, her powers do return to her. Also, good luck trying to bind Wonder Woman. I feel like that would be challenging. And friends, before we move on to our next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more Wonder Woman lists, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Artemis. Back in the New Earth days, there was a time when Artemis became the new Wonder Woman. Artemis is from the Banamigdal tribe of Amazons who hail from Egypt. Artemis would become Wonder Woman after Hippolyta had a vision of the hero dying, and not wanting her daughter to die, decided to challenge the fates by electing a new Wonder Woman. Artemis managed to win this contest and as such became the new Wonder Woman, being given magical artifacts of her own, including the Gauntlet of Atlas, which multiplied her strength by 10-fold, the Sandals of Hermes, which granted her swiftness and flight, and of course the Lasso of Truth. Artemis stood apart from Diana as Wonder Woman, but was less respected due to her violent approach to heroics and her more edgy past. Also, sadly, it turned out that Hippolyta's vision would still come true, with Artemis later dying while carrying the mantle. Don't worry though, she would be resurrected, as is usually the way with comic book characters. Artemis was also that other red-headed Wonder Woman who Arana's story and character design likely paved the way for. Number 7. Future State Wonder Woman. I think we can safely say that Yara Flor was a pretty powerful Wonder Woman when we got to peer into the future in Future State, and get a preview of Yara taking up that mantle. Yara herself, like Diana, is an Amazon, but one who comes from a different Amazonian tribe who split off from the women who reside on Themyscira. Her tribe is known as the Amazons of the Amazon, and like Wonder Woman, Yara herself is a demigod and as such possesses divine empowerment. She is super strong, super fast, and can fly, and even if she couldn't fly, she would have her winged horse Jerry to back her up. Yara Flor also possesses her own kind of Lasso of Truth, known as the Golden Boleodorus, which works a little differently. The Golden Boleodorus gives her control over her lassoed opponents, compelling them to bend to her will, which means she can not only compel them to tell the truth, but can also compel people to act as she wills them to. Number 6. Flashpoint Wonder Woman. Definitely one of the scariest alternates of Wonder Woman out there, this alternate version is specifically an alternate version of Diana herself and hails from the Flashpoint timeline. A dark timeline indeed. Here Diana, the Amazons, and Themyscira are at war with Aquaman and Atlantis. In the animated film Justice League The Flashpoint Paradox, this version of Wonder Woman is at war with Aquaman because she killed Mera, after the Queen found out about her and Aquaman having an affair. Whereas in the comics, it was the assassination of Diana's mother, Hippolyta, at the hands of an Atlantean during her and Aquaman's political wedding that started the conflict. But what both versions have in common, regardless regardless of how the conflict started, is that they are both ruthless, bloodthirsty, and determined in their war against Atlantis. Number 5. Dr. Anthony Stark. This version of Tony Stark only makes a brief appearance in the comics, having appeared less than a handful of times and making his first appearance in All New X-Men Annual Issue Number 1. He hails from the reality temporarily numbered 591, not an official number just yet. Here Tony Stark has become Sorcerer Supreme of the entire galaxy in this alternate future of the year 2099. He discusses the blend and interchangeability of both science and magic. It seems as the years passed for this Tony, he only became even smarter, wiser, and more mystical. Neat. Number 4. MCU Iron Man. Iron Man in the Marvel Cinematic Universe was the one who managed to put a stop to Thanos once and for all. He created a gauntlet capable of handling and wielding the awesome power of the Infinity Stones, and was also the one to discover time travel. Well, to discover a version of time travel that actually worked. Banner was close, of course, but I don't think either he or Scott Lang would have gotten there in time without Tony Stark's breakthrough aha moment. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe as well, Tony Stark is the main creator of Ultron. While this ended up overall being a bad move on his part as Ultron became a supervillain, the accomplishment of creating an AI that powerful and complex is still really impressive. And without Ultron, we'd never have gotten Vision. This version of the character, played by Robert Downey Jr., also really helped to skyrocket Iron Man's popularity in the comics and around the world. R.I.P. MCU Iron Man. You will be missed. Number 3. Iron Lantern. I'm really happy that this is the amalgamated version of this name that we went with instead of Green Man, which is less exhilarating by comparison. Green Man. Iron Lantern is a hero who comes to us from the Amalgamverse, and unsurprisingly, he is a mashup of DC's Green Lantern, Hal Jordan, and Marvel's Iron Man, Tony Stark. His name is Harold Hal Stark, and he gets his powers from a suit he made using a battery that he found amidst the wreckage of an alien ship. I love amalgam characters. Number 2. Iron Hammer. Stark Odinson is the version of Tony and Thor who hails from Warp World. Warp World was created when Gamora folded the universe in half using the power of the Infinity Stones. She then sealed these blended souls within the Soul Stone. While everything would be set right, this version of the universe was still allowed to continue to exist and kind of made its own thing, which I'm happy about because Warp World is pretty cool. Iron Hammer has both the ingenuity and brilliant armor of Tony Stark, as well as the Asgardian strength, immortality, and hammer Mjolnir of Thor Odinson. Number 1. Infamous Iron Man. Controversial opinion possibly, but I think Victor Von Doom is the most powerful of all of the Iron Mans. Doom took up the mantle of Iron Man following the events of Civil War II, which saw Tony left in a coma as a result of a fight with Captain Marvel. Dr. Doom, after the events of Secret Wars, had been looking to turn over a new leaf, and had decided to ally himself with Tony Stark as such, which also meant fighting on his side during Civil War II. In his honor, Doom took up the mantle of infamous Iron Man and proved himself to be one of the most capable versions of the hero that we've ever seen. Honestly, I feel like Doom as any hero or villain would be so powerful. I just love Dr. Doom. I don't know, spoiler alert, I love Dr. Doom. You already knew that. When this happened, even the villains knew they needed to be on high alert, gathering to discuss an alliance as they assumed this would be the only way to protect themselves against infamous Iron Man, only to have Doom drop in on the meeting and make quick work of, well, pretty much all of them. Infamous Iron Man was great, and honestly, it was too short-lived. Come back, infamous Iron Man, come back to us. Number 10. Zombie Dark Phoenix. This version of Jean does have some perks when it comes to power set, but ultimately her downfall is, well, being stuck in the Marvel Zombies universe, where many zombies get taken out by fellow zombie hero Hulk. Here, however, Jean is supposed to possess the Phoenix Force still, which in theory I think should have allowed her to resurrect herself, but maybe that works differently when you get completely punched to smithereens by the Hulk. But I mean literally, she gets punched through the torso, and then the Hulk crushes her head with his fist in Marvel Zombies 2 issue 5. It's quite gratuitous because, well, Marvel Zombies. Still, however, in theory, the zombified version of Jean should have been considered one of the most powerful. And overall, for the zombie heroes, even being defeated by the Hulk, she was considered one of the most powerful, running with the zombie Galacti, aka Powered Cosmic Zombies, on Earth 2149 or Earth Z prior to her death. Number 9. Ultimate Jean Grey. Ultimate Jean Grey ended up up becoming the leader of Tian, which I think gives her a power boost, but on the other hand, she was not made as powerful as her 616 counterpart when it comes to her abilities, so for that, she gets moved down a peg. While telekinesis was initially Jean's main power set on Earth 616, here in the Ultimate Universe, Jean seemed to primarily be more of a telepath, who also has telekinetic abilities. Jean, as a telepath, can psychically cloak herself or others, but not against stronger telepaths. She can heal trauma or give you trauma by altering your memories. She can give others amnesia too, and use her telepathy to create vivid and realistic illusions. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list, if you want more lists about Jean Grey, or just more mutant lists in general, because I love doing those, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up, and maybe share it, maybe give it to a friend you think, needs a little Jean Grey in their day. Number 8. Jean Grey, Earth 18119. Earth 18119 is the reality of Amazing Spider-Man Renew Your Vows. It was destroyed and then incorporated into Doctor Doom's Battle World, and after the destruction of Battle World, was then completely recreated and incorporated into the multiverse by Mr. Fantastic. On this Earth, Jean's power levels are comparable to her main continuity counterpart, but she also has the added strength of being a mother, which probably makes her both a more determined hero and teacher in this reality. On Earth 18119, Jean ended up breaking up with Scott Summers, aka Cyclops, after he lost faith in Professor X's vision, and instead ended up dating and later marrying Wolverine. Together they have a daughter named Kate, whose codename is Shine, and she's super cute. Number 7. Maddie Prior. A lot of people think of Maddie as being a weaker version of Jean because she's a clone, but I would argue Maddie is either on the same level of Jean, or at least has the potential to be at Jean's level or even more powerful. Why? Well, Maddie Prior might be a clone, but Mr. Sinister also made her using a part of the Phoenix Force, which means that Maddie Prior is kind of both Jean and the Phoenix Force all in one. She has like built-in Phoenix, which you'd think would make her connection just a touch stronger. Madeline, also known as the Goblin Queen, is also well versed in magic, something Jean hasn't really dipped into herself. I'm not saying she's more powerful than Jean Grey every day of the week, I'm just saying the potential for her to be more powerful here and there definitely exists, at least in my opinion. Number 6. Black Queen. This alternate version of Jean Grey comes to us from Earth 39529, which we get to peer into through 1989's What If series in issue 59. This What If asks the question, what if Wolverine led Alpha Flight? The answer? Well, the fate of Jean Grey would end up really dark. Wolverine becomes the leader of the Alpha Flight team due to the fact that the X-Men were unable to rescue him as their rescue team was killed by the Canadian military. Alpha Flight are the ones sent to rescue Jean after she ends up brainwashed by the Hellfire Club and joins them. Unfortunately, upon arrival, Wolverine learns it is too late as this version of Jean has already gone full Dark Phoenix. Logan has no other choice in this reality but to kill her in order to protect everyone else, basically on planet Earth. I don't know about you, but a completely evil Jean Grey who has gone full Dark Phoenix seems pretty powerful to me. I think Logan got lucky by even being able to kill her. Number 5. Superwoman. Even as a mother-to-be, Superwoman is really terrifying. Superwoman is the dark alternate of Wonder Woman who hails from Earth 3, but while she is like a parallel for the hero in terms of her place on the crime syndicate in comparison to the Justice League, she is not an alternate of Diana Prince. Instead, Superwoman is none other than an alternate version of Lois Lane, but one who is evil, diabolical, and superpowered. Superwoman possesses superhuman strength, durability, is immortal, and can fly. She is also a master manipulator who comes armed with her lasso of submission, which bends the will of any ensnared in it, making them both obey and love Superwoman. However, her barbed lasso doesn't work on all who she ensnares in it, and some with superbly strong will have managed to resist its control. Number 4. Earth 23 Wonder Woman. On Earth 23, Nubia is the world's Wonder Woman. She serves on the Justice League along with Calvin Ellis' Superman, Batman, Red Tornado, Green Lantern, Mr. Miracle, Vixen, Steel, Zatanna, The Guardian, Black Lightning, and Cyborg, a much more diverse alternate version of the League. Earth 23 Nubia possesses powers that put her on a level similar to that of Diana of the main continuity. Like Diana, she possesses divine empowerment, is an extremely masterful warrior, is immortal, and comes armed with her lasso, gauntlets, or bracelets, and her invisible jet. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, quick alert, we have a new channel coming your way. It is called Nerd Elite. That is right, we are doing another channel and I'm so excited for you to check it out. So make sure you do so, go subscribe, follow, do all the things. Number 3. Donna Troy, aka the original Wonder Girl. Donna Troy has also gone by a few other names over the years and had her origins reworked a few different times. Currently, her backstory is that she was built as a weapon to be used against Wonder Woman, being created by the Amazon witch Darano, vengeful ex of Queen Hippolyta. Donna, however, would overcome her villainous origins and become a hero in her own right, taking up the mantle of Wonder Girl and serving on the Teen Titans. Back in the New Earth continuity, Donna Troy took up the mantle of Wonder Woman during the events of 1 year later, after Diana stepped down in order to do some soul searching. Number 2. Hippolyta. Hippolyta is of course her own character and the mother of Diana Prince, aka our main Wonder Woman, but currently in the comics she has also moved over to become the new Wonder Woman with the Justice League. Hippolyta decided to take her daughter's place as one of Earth's most powerful heroes following the events of Dark Knight's death metal, where Diana basically became one with the cosmos after taking on the power of Perpetua and sacrificing herself to save the multiverse. As Diana rests, Hippolyta decided she should take up her daughter's mantle and has left Nubia to rule Themyscira in her place. Hippolyta is one of the most gifted Amazons around, being a gifted and wise leader, impressively fierce warrior, and brilliant strategist. Number 1. Aurora of Themyscira. This version of Wonder Woman comes to us from the Amalgam Universe, a crossover world where DC and Marvel characters become merged together. If you're a Marvel and Mutant fan like me, you probably already guessed which Marvel character Diana was combined with here. Aurora of Themyscira is a combination of both DC's Wonder Woman and, of course, Marvel's Storm, a famous member of the X-Men and former Queen of Wakanda. Combining both the powers and abilities of these two powerhouse characters makes Aurora one of the strongest alternate versions of Wonder Woman we've seen yet, and one of my favorites.